So the Mircea Eliade book looks at archetypal structure of shamanic initiation. And he like basically found that it's the same initiation structure in every culture with variations. It's the same structure. And Joseph Campbell discovered the same thing when he studied world mythology and found the monomyth, the hero's journey. It's the hero's journey of mythology is the shamanic initiation story. It's the same story. You depart, you die to cross over into the other world, you get initiated into the other world, you receive the boon, and then you come back and you return to share the boon. The boon is basically, in the shamanic paradigm, it's the soul that's been missing. Like the archetypal shamanic operation is soul retrieval. And so the patient has lost the soul, the shaman goes into the spirit world, gets the soul, and returns the soul back to the patient. That's the kind of traditional shamanic operation. The hero is like a cultural shaman. The hero is the one that recognizes that there is a soul loss at the cultural level, goes into the spirit world, retrieves the cultural soul, and returns the cultural soul to the culture. This is what Carl Jung did. Carl Jung is a hero. He's a cultural shaman. He recognized that he saved psychoanalysis from materialism. Sigmund Freud was a total atheist and was diving into the unconscious, which is the first realm of the spirit world that we can access. In occultism, we call it the lower astral. That's the unconscious. That's where the psychoanalyst is supposed to take the patient into their own astral body. That was like devoid of a shamanic spiritual view, and Jung gave psychoanalysis an inherently spiritual shamanic foundation. But he also rescued the soul of psychology, which is alchemy. The alchemists were the first psychologists. They were like working on transmuting the psyche. They were working on illuminating the psyche, on healing the psyche. The subject of their work was the astral body. The astral body is the psyche. What we call psychology, what we call the psyche, is in occultists called the astral body, the soul. So Jung did this kind of rescuing for the field of psychology, and even in a more grand sense for Western civilization. But the story still remains the same. The shaman is the one who suffers very acutely the loss, the illness that's basically still affecting the whole tribe, the whole culture. But the shamanic, the one called to be the shaman in that culture, is the one who suffers it really acutely because they're more sensitive. They suffer it really acutely, and they go on a journey to retrieve what's missing, and then they bring it back to share. And that's what makes the shaman of a culture. So each culture has specific conditions where, let's say there's a culture that's affected by black magic really badly, and it's destroying the culture. In that case, the shamanic individual of that culture will be the one that gets badly attacked by black magic, goes on a journey to find how to deal with that, finds what they're looking for, comes back and spreads that, and starts working to defend against black magic or transmute it. In a Hollywood movie, it's like the magic sword that's needed to defend against the evil dragon, and the hero goes and finds the sword, brings it back, and uses the sword to defeat the evil or whatever. But we can be really targeted and precise as Westerners if we understand what our wound is as Westerners. And we do have a very specific wound that we understand when we study Western occult history. Our specific wound is wrapped up in the history of Christianity, churchianity, and what happened with the shamanic impulse. It started with the Druids, when the Romans came into Britannia and wiped out the Druids. There's this persistent persecution of the shamanic impulse, of our connection to nature, of our connection to the goddess, of our connection to the spirit world, of our connection to the creator, of our connection to our own divine essence. That has been attacked. And so basically, like the essence of the Western shamanic initiation is to retrieve that, but it gets even more specific. Like our history has been attacked. So I'm trying to do a shamanic function by retrieving our secret history, because that's been taken from us and concealed and corrupted, and it's been replaced with deceptive lies and stuff like that. People thinking that the Da Vinci Code is like history, for example, it's just a fiction. So I'm trying to do that and that's a way that I'm manifesting the shamanic archetype in a unique way. in a way that's specific to my trauma. Because my trauma started with not knowing who I am, not knowing where I come from, and not knowing like what my purpose is. So my initiation was about discovering all of that. So it's all, the initiation is the same pattern, but the specifics of it are always concealed in what the trauma is. So some Westerners, due to growing up, we've inherited like all this soul loss. So most of us have grown up with parents who are suffering soul loss, who are suffering trauma, who are, and that's manifest through addiction or like abusive patterns, or so many people have been like abused or traumatized or sexually traumatized, and depending on what the trauma is, that's where the specificity of their shamanic function is hiding, is there. So if somebody was a drug addict, their shamanic initiation is healing themselves from the drug addiction, and their shamanic service is doing soul rescue, soul retrieval work for drug addicts. If somebody was sexually violated as a child, they have to do a soul retrieval on that, heal that, and then their shamanic function is to help others do soul retrieval work for those sorts of people. But in all cases, it's the exact same pattern. And the pattern always begins with a confrontation with illness, evil, trauma, and death. So for shaman or for loss, something is taken, something is wronged, there's an original crime, there's an original snake bite, And this gets into the inescapability of like shamanic initiation and the reality of evil and the problem of evil. Like, and evil introduces death and suffering into the world, right? And cosmologically, like this gets back to this idea of a fall. Like there was some sort of fall originally, there was some sort of original fragmentation or original wound or original trauma. And we have in Judeo-Christianity the story of Eden and the serpent and the tempting and the banishment, expulsion from paradise. And I'm not familiar with indigenous cosmologies, but there's got to be some sort of moment where humanity lost a connection to the Creator and fell in some regard, or a moment when evil entered into the world. Now, so duality is inseparable, I think, from shamanism. Like anybody who claims to be a shaman but denies the reality of evil, it's not the kind of shaman that's going to be of much use to their culture, because the reality is our culture is being violated all the time by evil, and evil is an illusion, or evil is just the absence of light. Like, try telling a shaman who deals with demons on a regular basis that evil is just the absence of light. It's more complicated than that. There's actually a will. There's such a thing as evil will. It's not just the absence of something. There's something there that is antagonistic to life, that's antagonistic to love, that's antagonistic to truth, that's antagonistic to humanity's spiritual evolution, that wants to corrupt. So we need to have a way of dealing with that, and we don't really have I think that we're at a threshold of evolution about how to deal with evil. I don't think the answer is found in the exorcism paradigm of Christianity, by the power of Christ, get out, go back to hell where you come from. That doesn't help anything. That just keeps the war going. And I think I don't know much about the Shipibo traditions, because I've never actually drank in that tradition. I don't have any personal experience. But it's what I understand from people who do, there's actually this idea of engaging in shamanic warfare to the end of even killing demons. And I don't think that works either. You can't fight fire with fire. You got to fight fire with water. You can't fight hatred with hatred. You have to fight it with love. You can't fight darkness with darkness. You need to fight it with light. And so this is a solution to the duality problem, because you get into this philosophical question of I don't believe in duality. It's duality is illusion. How can you say duality is okay? So fine, but duality may in theory be an illusion, but people are being very heavily persecuted by evil. And it is leaving scars. It is ripping their souls into fragments. People are getting possessed. People are getting enslaved by evil. and they're doing evil, and they're harming, and it's real, and it's like bloody murder and evil things happening that is very real. So yeah, I guess it's illusion, but it's pretty darn real. So like, I think that a solution is seeing how this duality becomes resolved. Like what happens, the shaman is the specialist of what happens when light meets dark. What happens when life meets death. What happens when an angel meets a demon. Like the shaman is the one who mediates that encounter. And the kind of shamans that, I think that shamanism is evolving as well. Like the gringos that come to the Sacred Valley are part of that evolution of shamanism. Like there haven't been Western shamans, there have been alchemists and occultists, but there haven't been like curanderos in the West ever that use these medicines to do soul retrieval work. Like this is a new phenomenon of like gringo ayahuasqueros, for example. Or people like me that like run a Santo Daime church that are serving medicine all the time, you know, and working for people's healing, using these entheogenic medicines to do shamanic work. This is a new phenomenon. And so shamanism is evolving, and one of the things that needs to evolve is how we deal with this dichotomy of good versus evil, and what we do in this moment where the light meets the dark. And I think that there is an actual like revolutionary development happening where the light can actually illuminate the dark. And when the light and the dark meet, if the light actually has the power to illuminate the dark, then everybody wins. The dark and the light unite, and the dichotomy is transcended. And the dark has this important function, like we shouldn't like wish that evil goes away, because the light needs the good needs the evil in order for the good to be good. The good needs the evil in order for the good to prove itself and manifest the good. Like we get into complete fantasy when we're talking about good and only in conceptual terms. The good needs to be proven in how it reacts to evil, for example. Like that helps to make the good real. So like shamans of the future, they need to be able to confront the evil and win and triumph over evil through goodness, and actually work for the healing of the evil and the redemption of the evil. It's not enough to dominate the evil. The evil has to be turned into good. And this is like really spiritually pioneering work. I don't even think that shamans do this. I don't even know. Like this is the kind of work that's being pioneered in the Santo Daime, because there's enough power in the ceremonial works, in the way that the ceremonies are structured, that when the darkness of the spiritual world comes to try to dominate, the light can actually transmute. And when the light is able to illuminate the darkness, then you have a situation where the war is ended. Like there's no more war. The light and the dark become friends. They become allies. And the darkness helps the light become more anchored and more manifested and more real, but it also tests the light. Because you know this blind spot of the New Age blind spot, like, oh, I'm so humble. And then there's disgustingly arrogant. Or like, I only have love and light. And meanwhile, they're doing sexual abuse of their students, you know? Like this eternal problem of the shadow work, this eternal problem of the perpetual blind spot. I think that like with...
I'm all love and light, but I hate Trump.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a real illusion in that. That's the kind of the breed of the New Age flavor, the New Age deception, that vibe, where it's like shadow work bypass. You know, so shamans need to be the pioneers of shadow work. But it's not about excising the shadow or banishing the shadow or sucking out the shadow and spitting it into or burning it, like taking a demon out of somebody and then murdering it, the demon, or dissolving it. I don't know what the shamans do, but I've heard stuff like they explode the demon, or they burn it, or they murder it or something. That doesn't evolve the cosmos at all. Like the real like redemptive thing is for the demon to be illuminated. Because demons actually bring gifts for us. They come into us, they come into humans through our areas that are still asleep, that are still unconscious, to use the psychoanalytic terminology. Like they work in our unconscious, they manipulate us through our unconscious, and they operate through our unconscious. If we can illuminate our demons, then our unconscious becomes conscious, and then we become whole, And then we can like really become our true potential. We can become bodhisattvic individuals that are illuminated and that don't have this huge split where our left hand does something that our right hand doesn't know about. And we have this conception of ourselves like we're light workers or we're medicine workers, we're carrying medicine, we're working for people. And yet, if you check the testimonials of the people that have done ceremonies with us, they say, yeah, that person's got a lot of darkness, or that person has like is working with demons or whatever, and the person genuinely doesn't even realize it. So like there's this huge issue of shadow work, and again this comes to the question of why we need, or that this fact that we keep coming back to, that we need elders that can help us illuminate our blind spots, that can help us see our blind spots better than we can see them ourselves. But what happens when your elder has a massive blind spot? Like if you're studying the Shipibo, like they're sorcerers. They fight with darkness, they work, but in some cases they work with demons. And they work with demons to deal with demons. That's an old way. They work with demons to deal with demons. Like they call a demon in order to pull out a demon from a patient. Or they call a demon to dominate another demon. But there's an evolution of shamanism that's happening in the world that you cannot escape, and this is going to be triggering, but you cannot escape this possibility that the West doesn't even know about yet, which I would call mystical, Gnostic, esoteric, entheogenic Christian shamanism, where people are working, the shamans in this case, are working with the forces, the Christic forces. And the Christic forces represent power in the spiritual world to illuminate darkness, and power in the spiritual world that has like power over the demonic, but a divine love, like a divine righteousness that is not like fighting fire with fire. And this is new. This is really new.